Initializing arrays can be very important in LabVIEW for a few reasons. That can be found under Arrays and Initialize Array. So a few things it can do is, like I've been using this basic array just for a few examples, but if I wanted to go through and let's just change all of these to a 1, I'd have to come in here quickly and type 1, 1, and this would take forever. One thing Initialize Arrays can do is it'll build your array for you. So here's a quick little example. I want my element to be, let's just say 2s, and I want my array to be 5 units. I want my array to be 5 elements long. I hit run. Now this array is filled with 5 elements of 2, and it was initialized right from the get-go. Where this is more important is me changing these all to 1 is not really relevant for what this would actually be used for. It could be. What initialize array can be used for a lot is especially in memory. So if you're running a program and you know you're going to have an array and the array is going to be 100 elements long and you don't really care what the initial value is, so sometimes you just put a 0 in there. So now if we run this, now we have an array that's 100 elements long, and we know later in our program we're going to use this array. So what this is telling the computer and the program is you may not use this right away, but you're telling the computer for memory, hey, I'm going to use an array. So you initialize the array to kind of take that chunk of memory and save it for this array. And then what you'd do is you'd use some of the nodes which I've talked about in previous videos. You'd use things like delete from array or insert into array, replace array, to go through this array and add elements as you need. And that's where you could use these structures which I've talked about in previous videos also, that you'd use like a for loop to, let's put one around here, so now we can index every element and we can do whatever we need to it, and then we can put it back into the array. So this is where initializing array, especially if you're working on a big program with a lot of people, that you might do this in the first initial stages of your code, is get all your arrays initialized and just throw in a value. 0 is typically used, and now we have this array already built, and now we can add information to it. This can also be added to, let's say, a multi-dimensions array. So if we just hover our mouse over that little blue cube and those double arrows appear, we can just pull this down as long as we want. But I'm just going to go 2 elements, and obviously this arrow is broken, which we can just remove. And now if I right click and go to create an indicator, you can see based on these lines too, now we have a 2-dimensional array. So if I want it to be the dimensions of, I've got to add this control here. I want it to be a 3 by 4, and I hit run. Here is our initialized 2-dimensional array, and then we can make this 3-dimensional, 4, 5, 6. You can just go on as large as you need your array to be. So this is how to initialize an array to be used for later in your program. It's used quite often in large-scale programs instead of a lot of the examples I've just been creating these little arrays, but typically you're going to end up using this. So just something to keep in mind. I hope this video was helpful, and stay tuned for more.